Welcome to the Awakening to Abundance podcast. I'm your host, Athena. This podcast is more than a podcast. It's a transformative journey designed to help you awaken to your abundance. For you to discover what living the fullness of life means to you. And to co-create that life in this podcast community. As always, we're jumping right in with today's episode. So this is the first podcast in this series. And this series starts out right away with a lot of train of thought moving without really any editing. I have done some editing, but it's really a stream of consciousness and really just vulnerable, putting it out there. I never actually really thought until voice notes in that I would turn this into a podcast. So I hope you enjoy it. Know that it's raw, know that it's real, know that it's authentic, and know that it's meant to help you in any way that it may resonate with you. I have this really interesting feeling of I'm just sitting here, I've got like 20 minutes on my parking. And I don't want to leave yet, but I'm like almost feel a little bit stuck. Like on one hand, it's like, okay, I have 20 minutes, so I could go back out there and I could walk a little bit more. And then the other party is like, or you could just go, or you could walk a lot and pull into a different spot. 'Cause there's plenty of spots in front of me. And I feel so filled right now. Like, so it's so weird. So filled by listening to the Abraham Hicks live. To the point where it was like, oh my God, I'm so filled today, but what do I do now? Sitting here with this feeling, trying to figure it out. Like, if I create my own reality, I get to do whatever the fuck I want, then what is this feeling of not knowing what to do next? And it's almost like a melancholy feeling, like, I'm so lit up and stuff, and now here I am, not sure what to do next. And I think now that I'm thinking about it, is like I was in the vortex for 2 hours just listening and like enjoying and being in beautifulness. And now I'm not really in the vortex. And so one of my thoughts was like, oh, I'll go home and meditate. That sounds like a great idea. And it still feels like a great idea, but like there's a little bit of a push to do something, not just like sit, like some sort of act. And like a little part of me is asking, is that the service kicking in? Is it like you wanting to create something, like to be of service through creation? And I think that's definitely part of it. And then I instantly thought to myself, with what I was thinking about doing, luxury, intimate coaching and mentoring on abundance, like daily intensives, I immediately was like, okay, but what does that look like? What does the abundance piece of it look like? I'd like to flesh that out more. And then I immediately went to, oh, I need to learn more. And then so I went to, oh, okay, there's the class I could finish on abundance. And I was like, is that what I want to do right now? And that didn't really feel right either. And I don't know if that's me just kind of like saying I need more time to learn, and then that's me just copping out. I don't know. The other part of this is as I was leaving, I saw some people in this really high vibe area just complaining, not very matching the surrounding atmosphere. And I guess I felt a little like in my like dress to the nines, Calvin Klein dress and boots and stuff. A little part of me was like, how are they so easily here and being totally fine with it? And like, for me, sometimes I feel like I need to get super dressed up in order to allow myself to be in places. And there's not really any real judgment on them. It's really about recognizing and becoming aware of what I'm still allowing for myself, still feeling worthy for. And the whole point here is to allow more. So I'm not exactly sure. I think it all comes together from being in this high vibe situation and then also environment, listening to Abraham Hicks and to where I am currently and just trying to figure out what does that next step look like. And there's no real impulse. And so I think honestly, my next step is really going to be sitting in silence and maybe even meditating a little bit more on this, but quietly, and seeing if an impulse or a thought or an idea that feels good comes up, because I've been in a very high vibe situation and I believe that I'm in an allowing state as much as possible, even though obviously I'm a bit out of alignment since there's some confusion, but that's okay. We can always choose to sit and listen and get back into alignment and see where it goes from there. I just wanted to voice out loud what I was going through because I think it's so easy for us to be in a state of expansion, growth, high vibeness, and then come out of it and then be a little bit like, wow, whoa, like, what do I even do next? Like, that was so expanding and beautiful and wonderful. Like, what's next? I don't even know. So, I mean, there's an excitement and an eagerness to it too, which is wonderful. But that's where I am right now. Wow, what a first great podcast, and some humdingers here, right? Even though it's short and sweet, it's actually really packed with really powerful things. And so I want to go over in hindsight and in a little bit of detail on why I think it's helpful to have heard this very real story and shares. But what does that look like now, a year and a half later? What is exactly this stage of the spiritual journey? And how do we make sense of it for ourselves as the listeners and in this time and place? So this first episode really shows the chaos that can be our brains and how quickly we can kind of just spiral, right? Because there was this beautiful mentioning of being quiet and being in what I call, and what I really got from Abraham Hicks, the vortex, which is for me this beautiful moment of really being quiet and still and feeling really fulfilled from that. And the other word I want to go over before we get too far into this is the word alignment. And when I speak of alignment, I really mean when we feel connected to that part of us that is not our ego, but our higher consciousness. So you get to call any spiritual term whatever you want to call it, whatever feels authentic and in alignment to you. I use higher consciousness, universe, and inner being, and we will go into other terms as they come up. But for now, know that alignment is authenticity. It's feeling inspired. It's connecting to something bigger than yourself. So it's so normal for us to feel really high and in the vortex and really in the flow, and then to notice that you are no longer in the flow or in the vortex, because this is building awareness. And this is really the first step in everything we're going to talk about in our spiritual lives, in our practices, in manifestation, is really slowing down and becoming aware. In fact, a lot of spiritual leaders talk about awareness as that higher being seeing through us, really being in tune with that higher part of us, our higher consciousness, the universe, being aware. But right now, early on in my spiritual journey, and what I will assume for most people, awareness just comes from being more still and noticing and starting to observe when we're in a really connected state and when we're in our ego state, when we're feeling agitated or we're feeling like we don't know what to do, right? There's not as much clarity as was in this particular situation for me. And it's totally normal when we get into this state after being in such a high, beautiful vibe state that we begin to question and sometimes even spiral out with our questions. One question leads to another question, which leads to another question, which leads to another question. And all of a sudden, all that beautiful clarity that we had from being still is chaos. And that's what our mind does. That's completely and utterly normal because that is the way that our brain works. And oftentimes, it is a defense mechanism from the ego because the ego has no idea what to do with the stillness and the calm and the high vibeness that comes from feeling aligned or being connected to something bigger than it is, that the ego is. And especially when you start talking about your dreams, and you're feeling inspired to step out of your comfort zone and do something new and different, then the ego gets really activated and it's like, but wait. You have to do this and you need to do this and you need to think about this. And then all of that programming and conditioning, meaning all of the things that you learned when you were younger from other people, kind of comes back and the mind is flooded with that. And then you're like, well, all right, maybe I won't actually do that really interesting thing that I'm inspired by because now I'm in my ego. And yes, younger Athena, to an extent, telling yourself that you're not ready and that you need to learn more in order to do that next thing that your heart is calling you to do. Yep. That's absolutely 100% the ego trying to keep you safe. And again, is 100% normal. And as younger Athena will see, and if you are in this boat, and we all are at some level, because that's what growth and expansion is, we meet this level of, ooh, I want to do it, but I'm a little bit afraid to do it. And then we take that step and we grow and we expand into whatever it is. All of that is normal and natural. And it is, again, the ego trying to keep you safe. The other theme that was in this episode is worthiness. And this, for me, I don't know for you, but for me, is going to be a big theme that you're going to see throughout this whole series, because it is something that I have struggled with, and I believe many people struggle with at different levels. And we see this kind of in a small way in this particular episode, because I talk about how, like, I feel in order to be at the Monterey Plaza Hotel that I have to dress a certain way or I have to act a certain way in order for me to be there, in order for me to belong in that space. And I looked at some other people who were not dressed to the quote unquote nines, and I was like, wow, that self-permission to just be you and just dress however you want to dress. Damn, that must be nice. But now, of course, I know that that is the way of being, right? That is the acceptance of who you are, that you belong to yourself. You don't need to act or be or dress a certain way, when you know that you are worthy in your heart, not only do you give that to yourself, but you don't judge people like I judged those people, because you know that you're all there to be together in that moment for whatever reason. And for me, that reason in that moment was to bring up this unworthiness and to bring up a little bit of judgment. And for me to give myself some permission to be different. And lastly, going into quiet and essentially waiting to be led is such a powerful practice. And I'm so glad that, I don't know if I actually went and did this or not. I'm so glad that that's part of the end of that first episode, because when we listen to ourselves, when we get quiet and we go within, all of our answers are there. Not the ego's answers, but our aligned answers. Thank you for listening to this podcast episode and being part of this community. I want to hear from you. Did something resonate with you in this episode? Are you experiencing awakenings or synchronicities in your life? Do you have any questions or ideas for the podcast in general? Email me at podcast@abundancewithathena.com or DM me on Instagram at abundancewithathena and share with me your stories. And with your permission, I'll share them with our community. And until next time, keep awakening to the abundance that's always within you.